Deception has two different definitions. The first being the act or causing someone to believe something as true or valid when in actuality is false or invalid. The second definition being someone who deceives or a trick. I outline these two definitions because I think it does a good job of not only defining what deception is, but also kind of being a metaphor of what the theme of this presentation is, which is there being a separation between a little bit of positive deception and then negative deception. I think humans crave small doses of deception, maybe not necessarily in our relationships, but in society as a whole. So I'll start with an anecdote. I was just in Las Vegas a week ago with some friends and some family. It was the first time in Las Vegas, and I couldn't believe the amount of magic acts and sleight of hand acts that weren't only just in like the MGMs and hotels, but even on the streets. And I just think that that is kind of one of the few forms of positive deception that we enjoy that doesn't really affect us in a negative way. So my name is Nathaniel Simpson, and today we're going to be talking about deception in our relationships. So by a show of hands, how many people have a significant other or in a relationship? Very good. Keep those hands up. By a same show of hands, how many people have lied to that significant other at one point or another? It's about what I thought I would see. So according to Tim Cole, who is a professor at DePaul University and conducted a study on relationships and deception in those relationships, found that 92% of individuals have lied to their significant other at one point or another. Deception in relationships, in my opinion, can start from things like white lies and work their way up to detrimental deception in relationships. Things that'll harm those relationships for years and years and years. Little things like, you're the best, those jeans look good, I love you. Those can be small little white lies that don't seem very harmful on the surface, but can have lasting impacts on the relationship and the two people in that relationship. So in this presentation, we're going to discuss some of the problems of deception in relationships, a few things that could be the causes of that deception, and then finally ways that we can either eliminate or mitigate that deception in those relationships. So to start with the problem, why is deception a problem, aside from the obvious? Deception is, at least just in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of others as well, is deception is just one of the most basic violations of a good and healthy relationship. This deception not only erodes the trust of that relationship, but hurts the trust of those two people in that relationship for years and years and years to come. I've seen multiple relationships, not just of my own, but of my friends and family, who the deception hurt that person so much that they were not able to even fully recover years after, and sometimes even forever. I also think that this is just a major problem to me personally. It's just because we're talking about a significant other. And as we discussed in assignments earlier, is a boyfriend is one of my favorite roles and hats to fill. And to have someone be able to deceive a person that they hold so close to them, what's the capability of them doing that to other people that aren't as close to them? So I just think that not only is the mindset of the victim of deception at hand here, but the deceptor themselves. I think that a person that, like I said, has the capabilities of deceiving someone they're so close with is capable of anything in terms of deception. So what are some of the causes of this deception? In my personal opinion, I think that parents lying to their kids at an early age is a huge cause of this deception. Or the term that I correlated with this, that I did a lot of my research on, was moral hypocrisy. And those are like parents telling their kids that lying is bad, but in actuality, they lie to their kids all the time. Now, when I talk about the positive and negatives, positive being the small white lies like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy that don't seem very detrimental on the surface, have a lasting impact on just the mindset of that child and how they view deception in their relationships going forward. So in a journal by Cargill and Kurtz from Angelo State, they discovered an extreme correlation by the number of lies told by parents and the satisfaction of that relationship from the perspective of the child. So they interviewed a lot of college students, and they found that the higher number of lies the parents told, the less satisfactory those kids viewed the relationship with their parents. Now, they also talked about how those kids would actually use some of those small white lies, and these were in the satisfactory relationships. But some of those kids would use some of the smaller white lies, even though they acknowledge that the parents used them on them. And this is where we kind of get into that middle ground, or where's the fine line between right and wrong. So Janet Byers from Live Science talks about how this fine line between what is wrong and right, especially with the deception of parents and childs, can fog the child's mindset going forward in a very, very bad way. So white lies are told by parents to get their child to do X, Y, and Z, when in actuality, if they're doing that on multiple different occasions, then the child never fully understands or learns why it's right to do X, Y, and Z, and why it's wrong to do other things. I thought that an episode of How I Met Your Mother did a really good job of kind of explaining this. There's an episode where they're going through Barney's old childhood home, and they're finding all these things where Barney's mom had lied to Barney just to make him feel better, like why the kids didn't show up to his birthday party and why he was cut from the basketball team. Things that you could resonate with because the mom was trying to protect their kid, but you saw in that episode how those things had a lasting impact on Barney and how he viewed his relationships with his parents and his friends, and just how those things even shaped him to who he is. So I thought that did a really good job of kind of portraying that. And then also another cause would just be setting unrealistic relationship standards. So an example of this would be like a guy saying that his girlfriend couldn't hang out with other guy friends, which would then lead to that female lying about where she is just so she can hang out with those friends. So setting those unrealistic standards can definitely be a cause of that. How do we solve this? Although it's a little bit cliche, I think that maintaining good daily communication is very important. And how I practice this with my girlfriend is we talk both about the positives and the negatives of what happened in our day. If you're only talking about the positives, you get a weird perspective of the relationship where you want everything to be perfect, where we get into that reciprocity thing where you don't want to incur debt from your partner. I think it's really important to share the positive and negatives simply for that, because I think it just develops a more comfortable relationship with the partner. Outline the do's and don'ts in a relationship. I think this is kind of the underlying theme of what deception is. If a girlfriend says that a boyfriend can't smoke, and he ends up smoking anyway and is lying and hiding it from his girlfriend, that's deception. If they sat down beforehand and let's say they come to agreement where it's just not a good idea to do it, it's very possible that there still is deception, but if the partners really care about each other and the health of that relationship, then most of those things can be avoided in that regard. Lisa Firestone, who is a co-author of a book called Sex and Love and Intimate Relationships, makes a good point on the foundation of that relationship. How, kind of going back to that example of a person smoking, is if that person really holds that true to their value and their girlfriend just does not see eye to eye, maybe it is best to stay true to yourself and to not go into a relationship where you already know that you're kind of battling about what things are to yourself and what things, like I said, are harmful to the relationship. So to review, we discussed the long-term problem of deception and how that affects the mentality of both parties, both in that relationship and post that relationship, and how long that can affect them. We talked about the causes of that deception and how early childhood lies from parents can cause deception to be familiar and comfortable with that person, as well as how unrealistic standards in a relationship can cause that deception as well. And then we also talked about how ways in which you can eliminate that deception, which, like I said, maybe parting ways and sticking true to certain values is best. Also, in saying that, is found ways to mitigate it. Sometimes it can't be eliminated altogether. Deception is all around us, both good and bad. like I said earlier in the presentation, a majority of it is negative. However, some of it's positive, kind of like I touched on with that Las Vegas example. So although we are discussing deception, I think it's important for us all to just get a better understanding and grasp of how we can better mitigate that in relationships, especially when we're talking about that with people close to us, like significant others and parents. So I think that, at least from my perspective, this presentation and research definitely gave me a better outlook on how I should go about not only mitigating the risk of deception, but how to better communicate and stay on the same page with your partner. So thank you.